There is not a single TV available on the market right now that is capable of utilizing all of the features that the next-gen consoles have to offer, or at least claim to offer. Now, you probably don't need all of these features, but even the most basic selling points, like 120 frames per second, are hard to find on consumer televisions. There's a lot of technical nonsense that gets thrown around, to the point where it sounds like television manufacturers are purposely making this confusing. But we're going to break it down, or at least attempt to break it down, so that come this November, you'll have all of the information you'll need to get yourself ready for these next-gen systems. This video is sponsored by Skillshare. If you're in grade school or university right now, that's cool. I don't care about you. I want to talk to the people who've been out of school for a while, like me. When was the last time you actually learned something? And I don't mean like telling your wife she looked healthy and then learning never to say that again. When was the last time you learned a new skill or something new about a skill that you're already working on? Everybody should be constantly learning. I mean, what else are we supposed to be doing with all this extra time we have? You could probably tell by now that I'm talking about Skillshare. For less than $10 a month, you can keep learning that skill you've been stagnant on or learn something entirely new. They have courses ranging from graphic design, animation, creative writing, film and video, music, and even marketing. Like, for example, Robert Genere's class on iPad illustration. And you can try it yourself too. The first 1,000 people who click the link in the description below will get their first 2 months of Skillshare completely free. So go on over there and get working on that skill you've been wanting to work on, instead of watching someone with a bad accent talk about video games. This whole video idea came about because on an episode of our podcast, we picked apart an article by Polygon called "Sony's Ready for PlayStation 5 TVs Are Not In Fact Ready for PlayStation 5." And it kind of activated a lot of concerns for me. The next-gen consoles have some crazy specs. They're gonna act more like PCs than ever before. There will be enhanced video features such as HDMI 2.1, frame rates as high as 120 frames per second, resolutions up to 8K, a variable refresh rate, auto low latency mode, and that's not to mention some audio stuff that we're definitely not getting into today. Most TVs, likely the one that you have in your living room right now, can't do any of this stuff. In fact, I can't find a single TV that can do all of these things. In this video, I'm going to try to break down what all of these features mean in nice and simple terms. Don't worry, if all you want to do is just play your next-gen console, you probably don't need any of these features. You're probably safe with the TV you have in your living room. All you really need is 4K at 60 frames per second. But if you're looking to upgrade your TV because of these next-gen consoles, you might find some of this stuff pretty interesting. Now, TV specs can get very confusing, and some of it can just be straight up lies. I'm still not even sure HDR exists. There's supposedly a million different types of HDR, but I've never seen HDR coming out of a console that makes any sort of visual difference to me. Also, have you noticed that there's more birds outside than usual? First, we'll talk about frame rate and refresh rate. Frame rate is how many frames per second your console is sending out of its HDMI port. Refresh rate is how quickly your display can refresh. It's usually dictated in hertz. TV manufacturers will sometimes refer to this as an effective refresh rate, which is just straight up a lie. Effective refresh rate means the TV refreshes its image at a lower rate, but might appear to have similar motion resolution as a TV with an actual higher refresh rate. So an effective refresh rate is a kind of, sort of, but also not really even at all refresh rate. It's the difference between the actual temperature outside and the feels like temperature outside, except that when you're using a gaming console, you want it to be accurate so that the refresh rate syncs up with the frame rate that's coming out. So you need actual science, not the feels like science. Do you understand? Do you see what I'm getting at? So in order to see 4K at 120 frames per second, you need a TV that supports 4K at 120 hertz. And Not many TVs can support this, and they had absolutely no reason to until right now. Hardly any television broadcast even gets as high as 4K 60 frames per second, and even if it does, it's not even real 4K because it's interlaced. Cable boxes are pretty antiquated technology all across the board, and movies are mostly shot in 24 frames per second, so Blu-rays aren't the reason for TVs to output such high frame rates either. Except for Gemini Man, which was shot in 120 frames per second for some reason, and you probably won't get to see it in that frame rate for a really long time. 4K 120 frames per second is a lot of data, and in order to even send that much data, you need an HDMI 2.1 port and an ultra high-speed HDMI cable that supports speeds of up to 48 gigabits per second. The HDMI 2.1 spec is only a year old, so if you got your TV before 2019, you're not going to get 4K at 120 frames per second, at least in the way that these consoles send it out. HDMI 2.1 and that ultra high-speed HDMI cable is required to get 4K 120 frames per second, and it's required for 8K at all. There are a handful of exceptions. There are very few TVs that have come out before 2019 that have received firmware updates to get themselves some HDMI 2.1 features. But essentially, if your TV came out before 2019, you're not going to be seeing any of this stuff. These new consoles will also support a variable refresh rate. This is a technology that syncs the console up with the display so that if the frame rate dips or changes dynamically at all, the TV's refresh rate will stay perfectly in sync with the console's frame rate. If your game outputs a steady 120 frames per second and your TV supports a true 120 hertz, then this isn't really a problem. But if the game's frame rate dips at all or changes in the middle of the game, like some games do during cutscenes, then some frames might get lost in the transition. If the refresh rate is variable, the TV can adjust its refresh rate to match the system. AMD calls this FreeSync, NVIDIA calls this G-Sync. There's slight differences between these technologies, and each manufacturer kind of uses them as their own kind of proprietary technology, but all you really need to know is that these new consoles call it variable refresh rate, and that's kind of a universal language. And this is another spec that requires HDMI 2.1. It has been patched into some HDMI 2.0 TVs, but chances are very slim that it actually happened to your HDMI 2.0 TV, because not many people are running Apex Legends off of their gaming rig onto their living room TV. If this all sounds like PC gaming stuff to you, that's because it is. PC gamers have been dealing with this type of stuff for a really long time. And you might be saying to yourself, but I'm a console gamer. I get a console so I don't have to deal with any of this stuff. And you know what? You don't. Just make sure your TV can support 4K at 60 hertz and you'll probably be just fine. You probably won't even notice a difference. It's just that these are marketing terms that are being used to sell these next-gen consoles, and they just don't mean that much to the vast majority of consumers, and they could be very misleading. Back to the article that sparked this whole video, Sony has TVs that are marked ready for PlayStation 5. The X900H and the Z8H. The X900H isn't even capable of 8K, and what's even worse is that it doesn't even support any HDMI 2.1 features out of the box. It requires a firmware update that you'll get at a later unspecified date to even unlock HDMI 2.1 capabilities. That means 120 hertz, that means variable refresh rate. The higher spec, much more expensive 8K Z8H has an HDMI 2.1 port out of the box, but does not support variable refresh rate. Part of the problem is that the features listed on these spec sheets across all of the different TV manufacturers is very inconsistent. Variable refresh rate isn't even on Sony's listing for the X900H on their website at all. The only reason I know it's gonna be coming to the X900H is because of this article. I'll note, though, that their website says that it supports 4K 120 hertz when it doesn't until that firmware update comes out. So that's just a lie? It just doesn't do that?
It's apparently it needs a firmware update to do that.
But the firmware update doesn't exist. So when I get this thing, it will not do this.
It will not do that.
So this is a lie. They're selling a lie.
Yes.
What the hell, dude? You can't do that. Having a ready for PlayStation 5 distinction would be great for consumers looking to make the most out of their next generation hardware. Unfortunately, this distinction means f*** all. LG currently has 2 TVs available on the market right now that support 4K at 120 hertz with a variable refresh rate and HDMI 2.1. That's the LG GX and CX, and you're looking at spending at least $2,100 and $1,500 for those respectively. If it's 8K that you're looking for, well, you can forget it. I don't know, a single 8K TV that supports every single one of these specs. Luckily, or unluckily, depending on if you're a pessimist or an optimist, 8K isn't going to be something that we'll be seeing in the world of gaming for a decent amount of time. I don't think any games on the next-gen consoles are going to support 8K at launch. Maybe some super basic games that could be rendered that way really easily. 8K TVs are getting cheap a lot quicker than I was expecting. Sony's ready for PlayStation 5 8K TV is a whopping $6,000. But a quick trip to Amazon shows 8K TVs for under $3,000. But if you're looking for a TV for your next generation gaming, you probably shouldn't even be looking for 8K anyway. You should just be looking for HDMI 2.1, 4K at 120 hertz, and a variable refresh rate. But who knows, because even Sony lists some of that stuff as a spec, when it's clearly not a spec yet. I'll list those 2 LG TVs that I talked about before in the description below with affiliate links that help support the channel. I'll also link those 2 Sony TVs if you just want to look at them. It sounds to me like the best display for these next generation consoles might just be a gaming monitor. If you have a desk setup and all you'll be doing is playing games on the thing anyway, you might want to consider going with a monitor setup instead of a big TV. It'll be way easier to get the features you want out of something like that. Basically, all of my console gaming is done on a monitor, and I've grown to prefer it that way. The TV out of my living room is a pretty decent size, and I'm not that far away from it, but I feel really far away from it when I'm playing now because I'm so used to being right up against my display. When the new consoles eventually do come out, I'll be sure to make a video showcasing the best displays to get with the new hardware. I've done a video like that in the past. It just depends on what manufacturers actually want to play along, because I'm not about to spend $6,000 on a TV just to say it looks okay and then never touch it again. But I don't want to do anything like that yet because I want to actually have the consoles with me so that I know that they're working great with those displays. You know what I mean? Getting ready for the next gen systems isn't just about making sure you have the right hardware. It's also about setting your expectations. A lot of these cool sounding specs probably aren't going to matter to most people. I'd say get the console first and worry about the display later. At that point, you can decide what specs really matter to you. And hopefully, TV manufacturers will make it more clear by then too. Although, that might be wishful thinking. So anyway, what do you guys think about next generation specs and the displays you'll be playing it on? Do you think your TV is ready for it, for at least the specs that you care about? Are you thinking about getting a TV specifically for the next generation hardware? Are you thinking about getting a PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X and then upgrading your TV later on? I feel like people are going to feel attacked when I say that your TV isn't ready for the next generation hardware. I just mean that there's a lot of specs that none of us are really ready for. I mean, the important ones are there. 4K, 60 hertz, that's easy to hit on most TVs. But that 120, don't be fooled by the marketing. That might be a tough one. Anyway, leave it in the comments below. Add me on Twitter, and all of this other social media garbage. We got new videos on this channel all of the time. Our schedule is usually in a pinned tweet over on our Twitter. And we got a live podcast. Check the schedule for that too. And we stream over on twitch.tv/wolfden. Turn on notifications there so you know when we go live. That's easier. But But of course, the most important thing that you could do is just subscribe to this channel. That's it. It's nice and easy. And share this video with a friend who is interested in these next-gen consoles and maybe wants to upgrade their TV, or maybe is just one of those gearheads that gets a new TV every year. Those guys are weird. You don't need a new TV every year. Oh, also, there's going to be some channel updates in the next day or so, so make sure you stay for that. Go follow us on Twitter. Put the notifications on here. Thank you very much. Have yourself a good week.